there's an amazing value to simplicity. And in my businesses and in my life, I've brought things down to kind of like three colors, like the stoplight, right? At a stoplight, green is go, orange is like hang on, slow down, and red is stop. And so what I've done is in so many areas, I try to bring things down to just three simple colors. And because of that simplicity, it's amazing how effective that is. So like even when I'm interviewing people to hire them, rather than put a score of 1 to 10, I just put green, red, or orange, right? So if I'm interviewing a new person to work on our team, I have a set of questions, and I evaluate. And most evaluations, there's a complex formula and this and that. And I'm like, green, red, orange, that's it, and if they get most of the greens, then fantastic.
Hello and welcome to the Riyadi Club podcast, where entrepreneurs are the real heroes. On this podcast, we discuss tools, concepts, and ideas that are practical and inspirational for the entrepreneur. To learn more, go to www.riyadi.me. That's RIADI.me. Thank you, and I hope you find this episode helpful.
Hello entrepreneurs, this is Ruba Al-Tijani and welcome to Riyadi Club with Daoud Qaqish. The title of today's session is Clear the Path. This is part 3 of a 7 series of Your Big Dream. If you want to learn more, go ahead and register for our online workshop. Daoud, tell us a little bit more about why is this important for the listener.
Hello, Ruba, and hello, entrepreneurs, and hello to the listener. This is part 3 of part 7 of Your Big Dream, and the title of the session today is Clear the Path. The big problem is if you're like anybody else, you've got a busy personal life, you've got a busy professional life. Right before the podcast, Ruba and I were talking about, just different things going in our lives. And sometimes, you go through peaks and valleys where things are really busy, and sometimes where you're kind of living like a zombie, just you're sort of on cruise control. We have these big dreams and we have these small dreams, but we don't make the time to prioritize that. We're so busy with, all these different things that we end up sometimes not focused on our target, or worse yet, we're living somebody else's dream, maybe our parents, maybe our friends, maybe our society. So today what we're going to talk about is, hey, how do you go ahead and how do you accomplish your big dream? We're going to talk about clearing the path. So one of the important concepts is you got to get things out of the way so you can focus on the things that are important for you, whether those are, again, big dreams or small dreams, big ambitions or small ambitions. It's going to be a fun session today. We've got a bunch of things to cover, and then we have a very specific call to action for you at the end. But I want to start with this story. Ruba, you probably looked at the show notes. Were you familiar with the story about this Olympian and the wrong target, or is that the first time you've read the story?
Yeah, that's the first time.
All right. Let me share with the listener what this is all about. So there's this Olympian champion. His name is Matt Emmons. And he's one of the best rifle marksmen in the world. So he takes the rifle and he shoots on a target. And he's got like all kinds of titles and championships and stuff like that. And he was in the Olympics and he represented the United States. And this was back in 2004. And he practically was about to get the gold medal. And all he had to do was, hit the target. And what was interesting is that one day, when he was about to win the gold in that one Olympic, he was about to go in and hit his target. And he hit the target and it hit like right in the middle. I don't know much about this, but I think it's red, right? The bullseye is red that's in the middle. And he hit it and he was right on the money with that. The only problem was he didn't hit his own target. He hit his competitor's target. So he hit the wrong one. And then the crowd, instead of clapping, they were holding their breath and they felt sorry for the guy, right? Here's a guy that's amazing, that's phenomenal, an Olympian champion, a gold medalist champion. He didn't win that day because he hit the wrong target. And I use that as an analogy where I think for us growing up, a lot of times there's so much pressure on us, whether it's parents or family or friends or society or you name it, to be something. And it's almost like you've lived your life and maybe you're aiming for the wrong target, or maybe you hit the target and it's the wrong one and it's not your target. I can tell you from my personal experience, I'm sure, Ruba, maybe you too, it's almost like as a kid growing up, you had to either be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. And I have zero interest in being any of those, So I don't know if it was the same for you or not, but there was just so much pressure to be any of those. And anyways, I share that story because are you aiming at the wrong target? Or did you hit your target and then all of a sudden realize you hit the wrong target? And another analogy that I like is like, climbing the ladder, right? So you climb the corporate ladder or the ladder of life or whatever ladder you want to call it. And then you get to the top of the ladder and you're like, ah, crap, I'm on the wrong ladder. I should have been climbing a different ladder. So are you aiming for the right target? Are you climbing the right ladder? And those are important questions. And if we don't take a step back and if we don't clear the path, we're just sort of living life like zombies. So Ruba, I'll come back to you, and then I've got some specific points for the listener to cover here.
I like the story of the Olympic player because I think that is the biggest analogy of someone who's just living it. You're just living it, and then you arrive somewhere and you're like, that's not where I want to be. And I think a lot of people are just stuck in the daily life. It's like we have a blueprint of life. We have a blueprint of success. You need to do this and that. You need to finish your school, and then you need to work, and then have a family and so on. And if you don't do that, and if you don't go on that path, then it feels like you're doing something wrong. If you ask me, I feel like this is something wrong because you're missing out in doing so many things, but then there is a lot of uncertainty in every other path because you don't know what is the end of it. But we all know what is the result of getting a good job, being stable. Probably wouldn't be happy. Some people are, but this is just it. It's safer, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think a lot of people are doing it. But nowadays, there is a lot of awareness. A lot of people are interested in discovering themselves, in trying and exploring. There is a lot of exposure as well to entrepreneurship, and people are speaking about it. And people who've achieved success, like in online business or in other fields. And I think few years back, we weren't so familiar with the regular entrepreneur. Like, we were just familiar with the iconic names, right? So you'd know, like, yeah, there's
Steve
this
Jobs or Elon Musk or
Steve
the big
Jobs,
guys.
Bill Gates, yeah, the big guys, the guys that, I mean, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to be
Yeah.
the next this person, right? But nowadays, a lot of entrepreneurs are like just exposed. So people are starting to realize that this is a possibility and this is a way. It's another way to do it. And I think this is valid for all the aspects of life as well, because now people are more happy to share and like
Yeah.
more open about their lives. So perhaps the dreams that someone has are not as unrealistic. Perhaps
Yeah.
it will work.
Yeah, you don't have to be the next Oprah, right? And because everybody's like thinking, a big Oprah, Steve Jobs, whoever. And, for me, it's just, I like to call, sort of that everyday person that's, living their dream or living their ambitions. I like to call them small giants, especially the independent entrepreneurs. And we don't think about that. So again, to kind of recap, we're going to talk about some strategies today to help you clear the path so you can have the time, so you can have the energy, so you can have the vision to live your big dreams, to live your big visions and accomplish them, and your small ones too. One of these strategies is your not to-do list. It's kind of one of our favorite things in life. A lot of ambitious and driven people have a to-do list. I have a to-do list. Ruba, I imagine you have a to-do list, right?
A lot of to-do lists. But I try to shorten them.
So the to-do list becomes a monster, right? It's like the cookie, I don't know, the Cookie Monster, and it gets bigger and bigger. And you cross out things and there's more and more and more. And actually, I argue when I say your not to-do list is actually more important than your to-do list. And so if you don't have a not to-do list, you definitely want to have a not to-do list because, everybody has a to-do list, right? Not everybody has a not to-do list. And I challenge you to create a not to-do list. Start with the things that are draining that you hate doing, right? Figure out a way not to do these things, delegate it, eliminate it, automate it, whatever. Figure out a way to do that. Now, I want to share one more thing, Ruba, and I'll come back to you before I talk about another strategy. A lot of the framework and a lot of what we're talking about today is by a book by Bob Goff, and it's called Dream Big. So we took this book and we've kind of put our own twist on it and on our own message with that. But something really cool that Bob does, he says he quits something every Thursday. So he set it up so that every Thursday he quits something. It could be something big, it could be something small. Now, I'm much more strategic, right? So I kind of look at like, hey, what are my weekly activities? What are my quarterly activities? Whatever is in red. And so I code them as green, orange, and red. Green are within unique ability. Orange, they're okay. And red, I hate them. I do them, but I really hate it. And so at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, I look at, hey, what are all the red things that I have? And I'm like, you know what? I need to figure out how I can eliminate those from my life. Again, whether it's personal or professional. I don't always succeed, but I have a strategy to eliminate these things that I find draining. So strategy number one for the listener is, do you have a not to-do list? And if you don't, put one together. And Ruba, I'll come back to you before I talk about another strategy.
And the first time you create a not to-do list or you add an item to it, you feel a little bit weird because you feel like that is something that normal people do. Why do I hate it? And you feel kind of like you need a justification to add it to the not to-do list. I have weird stuff there in my not to-do list. I get reluctant a little bit. I want to do it because I like the challenge, but I don't like doing it. So I have a lot of items that are kind of like not fitting there 100% in the not to-do list, but yeah, I love having a not to-do list. You feel like you have some principles, at least. Like, I'm not doing everything. This is something that takes a lot of time. I'm saving my energy for better stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, the way that you categorize your activities, do you do this decision? When you do the decision, you go ahead and write the activities, or you already have the activities written and code colored, and then you just classify them when you're about to make a strategic decision?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I've learned along the way is there's an amazing value to simplicity. And in my businesses and in my life, I brought things down to kind of like three colors, like the stoplight, right? At a stoplight, green is go, orange is like hang on, slow down, and red is stop. And so what I've done is in so many areas, I try to bring things down to just three simple colors. And because of that simplicity, it's amazing how effective that is. So like even when I'm interviewing people to hire them, rather than put a score of 1 to 10, I just put, because it's easy. I'm like green, red, or orange, right? So if I'm interviewing a new person to work on our team, I have a set of questions, and I evaluate. And most evaluations, there's a complex formula and this and that. And I'm like, green, red, orange, that's it. And if they get most of the greens, then fantastic. It answers the question. But to go back to your question, yeah, like this, because I plan my next day before I leave. So if today, for example, today is Monday, before I leave for Tuesday, I plan Tuesday, because when I go home, that's it. I check out and I'm not thinking about work anymore. And when I plan it, I list the activities. My default mode is green because these are things that are unique ability. And then when I come across something I don't really care for, I'll just highlight that and I'll put that in orange. And then if there's something I have to do, I'm like, I hate it. I'll put it in red. And so I'm going to have orange and I'm going to have red occasionally. But if I see a pattern or if I see a theme of a lot of orange or a lot of red, that's a sign for me to go ahead and get rid of those things and eliminate them, delegate them, or automate them. So that's kind of how I do that.
That's interesting. So you kind of like self-reflect daily.
Yeah, it's when I'm doing the planning. The next day, I don't think about that, right? Because I have my schedule and I know between, 10 and 11, I'm working on a thing that's orange, whatever. I mean, I work on it, I'm done with it, and, I move on. So yeah, that's kind of how I do that.
Okay.
So, okay. All right, cool. So we got ahead of ourselves, but that's one of the activities at the end where we're asking people to sort of say, be aware of their activities, and we'll come back to that. So strategy number 1, a not to-do list. Strategy number 2 is the overflowing cup. And what I mean by that is, there's different variations of the story. There's an Egyptian pharaoh, there's a Buddhist monk, and they're trying to pour tea for you, but your cup is full of tea. So you can't get more tea because your cup is already full. So what you need to do is you need to empty your cup because it's overflowing so that you can go ahead and you can get that tea. And what happens with us, and the story of the overflowing cup, the analogy there is our lives are so busy. We've got so many things going on, here and there, and again, personal, professional, family, you name it. And it's kind of like that overflowing cup. I have this amazing tea that I want you to try and I want you to drink, but your cup is so overflowing, you can't possibly taste it. You can't possibly even put it in your own cup. So in order for you to have great things in your life, you need to figure out how to empty some things because you've got way too many things in there. I'm going to share 2 other things by 2 other people to kind of get this message across. Derek Sivers, he's the founder of a company called CD Baby and sold it for like, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's got a line where he says, I try not to swear, but this is what he says and I like it. It's basically hell yeah or no. And what he means by that is like, hey man, anything that I'm going to start doing, it's either a hell yes, yeah, let's do it, or no, I don't want to do it, and nothing in between. So in him, it's like all green
or red.
That's it. There's no orange. And red, I'm not doing it. Green, I'm going to do it. But another quote by John Maxwell, and I like this one a lot, is learn to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the best, right? There's a book out there, I think it's by John Maxwell, I'm not sure, but good is the enemy of great. And the whole idea is if you've got a lot of good things in your life, it's fantastic, but there's no room for what's great. So this strategy of the overflowing cup really resembles us in our lives where we have a lot of things going on. We need to clear the path so that we're able to focus on our big dreams, on our big ambitions. And with that, Ruba, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, and I think, David, it's also to do with the energy, right? Something like when you're starting a new project, think about a rocket that is launching. So you need to put all your energy so that this rocket is able to launch, right? But often a lot of people are doing so many things at the same time. So you end up distributing your energy across so many things and you can't progress that much. So it is often that we're so busy with so many things, little things and responsibilities and work and just so many things that you can't find yourself anymore. And you can't really focus on what is relevant and you can't move forward. You can't start something new. I thought it's just me, but then I discovered that it's not just me. You need your space, you need your rest, so that you are able to create something, so that you're able to make something. You have to take some space. So when the daily life becomes too much, then I think it's a little bit difficult to create something new or to step out of a tight place or to find yourself or to connect yourself. I think it's worth it to do the effort to kind of like preserve yourself a little bit, keep yourself a little bit further from maybe all the responsibilities, sometimes from people as well.
And Ruba, one last thing on this, and then I'll go to the other strategy. One of my favorite things about Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, is he would wear a black shirt and jeans and a tennis shoes, right? Amazing, right? Like he changed it, right? But it was basically a black shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes, and that's all he wore. The guy could wear anything. He could buy anything. And he goes back to just the regular shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes. And I love that about him. And the reason he did that was he didn't want to waste energy, right? Time, energy, focus, anything like that on what he wore. It was irrelevant to him, right? He was much more thinking about other things. And actually, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and many others in Silicon Valley, they use that same strategy where they're less concerned about what they're wearing. I haven't met a woman CEO that does that yet because I think there's too much pressure on women to,
society.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But for guys, I love it, and my kids make fun of me because I tend to wear a lot of the same stuff all the time.
One less decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, who cares, right? But, the energy that's associated with that.
Absolutely. If you can reduce decisions to like a routine, put it in a routine or delegate it or give it to someone or maybe not do it. We are busy with really unnecessary stuff that we think is necessary, but if we just take the time and realize that maybe my time is more valuable than just to do what I think I'm supposed to do, maybe I should take some time and like plan it. I did actually that, David, and I was surprised. I was like, what am I doing? When you have this feeling like you're moving the whole day and you're like, at the end of the day, I ask myself, so what have I done? I really didn't have any answer. And yeah, that is an exercise to just really figure out what are you doing? Because there could be a lot of symptoms that you don't have a lot of space or time.
Yeah, and we've all been there, right? We're busy with activities that are meaningless, that are not moving us forward. And, just because you're busy doesn't mean that you're moving forward towards something. The other strategy that I want to talk about is limiting beliefs. And the story that I want to share here is kind of like, elephants and the weak chain. The story here is, and I didn't know this is fascinating. because I love animals. And how do they train elephants, like in a circus or an environment, so that the elephant kind of listens to the trainer and the elephant doesn't run off? Because, you look at the elephant and he's tied with like a weak rope or not even at all or anything like that. I'm like, why doesn't, and I've been to a couple of circuses where I'm like, why doesn't this elephant just run out there and, step on everybody and stuff like that, right?
That's a good question.
I love animals. I'm always trying to take my kids to the zoo and spend time. I have more fun at the zoo than my kids, so I pay attention to these things. But it's like, how do they train this elephant when that elephant is young? They tie the elephant's foot with a chain and that elephant can't go away. And so now in the elephant's head, that elephant, they just tie its foot and it assumes it can't go away. What's amazing is it just takes one time that elephant can take off, and the elephant just never realizes that. And so for the rest of his life, that elephant is not moving away because he's got a limiting belief that he can't do that. And I use that story because it's an analogy for us and with our limiting beliefs. And sometimes it's hard to be aware of what these limiting beliefs are, right? Where money is evil. You might come from a family where they think that, money is bad. Or you come from a family where, hey, you know what? You'll never be anything big. Or, and the list goes, or what society has trained you. Or, and the list goes on and on and on. But there's a lot of these limiting beliefs. And so that's one of the things that I think we all do in our own lives. And this is a tough one, right? I mean, it's a tough one. What are the limiting beliefs or what are the weak chains that are holding you back? And half of the battle is being aware of that. So I don't know what those things are, but being aware of that. And, I've even discovered that in my own life, right? So for example, when your kids leave, go play outside or this or that, or me as a kid, when I would go play outside, right? What do my parents tell me, right? Be careful, be safe, right? They're worried for me. But, life is more than just being careful and being safe. Yes, I want to be careful and I want to be safe, but life is a big adventure. What are these other things that are out there and things like that? So there's just a lot of limiting beliefs that are holding us back. There's a lot of limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Try to explore what those are. And again, knowing is half the battle. So that strategy is knowing your limiting beliefs and really transcending those limiting beliefs is another strategy.
And I think, David, why can't I do it? Is a very powerful question. You keep on asking yourself, why can't I do it? And often the answers you get, you feel like they're definite. I don't understand this. I don't have experience to do it. I've never done it before. No one has done it before. What really helped me, and I have been through this recently, there was a Facebook group to do with mastermind. I was just listening to videos of people. They would just record themselves and they would be like, my limiting belief was this and and I started to ask myself, was like, so what are my limiting beliefs? I was really, first day I didn't get anything, and then I started to figure out that yes, I do have some limiting beliefs. I was surprised because I didn't know that they existed. That was the thing, like you have them and you don't even know that you have them. It would be different if you knew that you don't believe in yourself. But this limiting belief, I feel like, is just a sickness in the mind, and it's hidden. And you really have to look for it, and you really have to open up your mind and kind of like drill a little bit and look for it and figure out what is it and what is stopping you. And I think it's definitely worth it. I think it's never ending because unfortunately, a lot of our self-image is formed in our very early years of life. And a lot of our self-image is formed from what other people are telling us and from the implicit messages we've been receiving from our environment. So a lot of the times these are just under the rug, and you don't know that you're limiting yourself. Just like the elephant that you mentioned. I mean, the chain is still there, but just in his mind. It's just a mental chain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a tough one, definitely. But I think it's worth it. And the question is just like, why I can't do it, and to keep on having that dialogue with yourself. And just don't take anything like a definite, right? Why can't you do it? I don't have enough experience. So what? So what? You don't have enough experience. And I think it really helps to find other people who are sharing their limiting beliefs. You might be sharing the same one. Or to find people who are maybe a little bit different. They've done things that are out of the ordinary, and people who feel like they're normal, not people who are very far from you. You know what I mean? Like not far away in success, maybe. People who are a little bit maybe better than you, just like a chapter better than you, two chapters better than you. And if they've done it, this can really indicate to you that maybe there is something there, and maybe you do have a limiting belief that is keeping you.
Yeah, I'll share one more thing and then I'll recap what we talked about. And then I have a call to action for you as a listener. And if somebody else can do it, why can't I, right? That's kind of like my question. I go on, I mean, it's
Why
just
not me,
fascinating.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we often have a long list of why can't you do it? Because he's like this, because she's like this, I don't have this, I don't have that.
Yeah. And I'll share this story. It was an eye-opening story for me, and it was really an inspiration for me. A long time ago, I can't remember, maybe 15 years ago or something like that, I was at an event, and the speaker there was an American football coach. I believe it was Notre Dame, and his name was Lou Holtz. And he was a well-known coach. I think he's got his team to many playoffs and championships and things like that. And I really didn't know much about him, so I go to this event and, I'm with my wife and he's up there speaking and, whatever, and then he goes up and the guy, this is American football. And, the guys that play American football, they're huge. This guy's like skinny and tiny. And I'm like, oh my goodness, And when he's talking, when he's giving his speech, he actually has a slight lisp. Like he doesn't speak perfect English, right? He's got a little bit of a lisp. And I'm like, oh my goodness, here's a small guy that has a lisp that doesn't seem to be so motivational. Like he was probably one of the most inspired guys that I've seen, because I'm like, he's the opposite of what you would expect, right? I'm expecting some big guy that's loud, that's very articulate, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so when I saw that, I was amazed, I was inspired, and I was motivated. I even went out and bought his book. I'm like, hang on, I got to see what this is all about, right? So anyways, I wanted to share that story because it's like, and I don't want to be an American football coach or anything like that, but I look at him, I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy's like a source of inspiration. It's amazing. So just mind-boggling. So anyways, let me recap a couple of things. Number one, we had talked about in terms of strategies. Are you aiming for, or are you on track for your target, not somebody else's target? That's one of the things we talked about. Number two, we talked about having a not to-do list. Number three, we talked about the concept, the strategy of an overflowing cup and, not being so busy with activities, but, freeing yourself up. And then number four, we talked about your limiting beliefs. Here's my call to action for you as a listener. Number one, go and create a not to-do list. Just go for it. What are the things that you hate doing that are draining? Just don't worry about how they're going to get done. These are things that you hate. These are things that are draining. Create a not to-do list, put it there. Just do that at this point of the game. The other thing that I want you to do, I want you to analyze where you're spending your time. And here's what I want you to do about that. So typically your work week and your weekends are a little bit different, but take your work week and then take your weekend and break it into morning, afternoon, and then evening. Okay? And then rate, so, whatever, the work week is, Sunday through Thursday. So go ahead and rate that and say Monday through Thursday, morning, afternoon, and evening. And then do the same thing on the weekend, morning, afternoon, and evening. And then give yourself a color rating. Is it green? Is it orange? Or is it red? Okay? And then if your Monday mornings or your Friday evenings are green, what are the activities you're doing during that time that cause that to be green? If your Wednesday afternoon is orange or is red, what are the activities that you're engaged during that time that's causing that to be red? What I want you to think about then is go ahead and do that and then ask your question, what needs to go so I can free myself up, so I can clear the path, so I can spend time on things pursuing my big dream and my big ambitions? And so that's kind of the exercise. So number one is your not to-do list. That's the call to action. And then the second one is go and analyze your time, rate it, green, orange, and red, and then ask yourself what needs to go. And with that, Ruba, I'll turn it over to you if you want to add anything, and then we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Thanks, David. And I really think that especially analyzing the time, because I have been through this lately, will help you to figure out what you're doing, because it is crazy when you are just doing stuff and you often don't even realize that you are stuck, and it's just a very, very powerful exercise to realize what are you doing. Maybe you're wasting too much time speaking or chatting or browsing Facebook or social media or unnecessary stuff, really. That is very common, that people are usually doing it, watching too much TV. So yeah, I really couldn't stress enough on that, coming from a place of someone who just did it now. So with that, thank you for listening to this program of Riyadi Club, where entrepreneurs are the real heroes. And remember, you've got something in this world, so rise up.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Riyadi Club podcast. And remember, you have something in this world, so rise up. If you want us to cover a specific topic, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, go to www.riyadi.me. That's RIADI.me. Thank you and have a great day.